The layout of your van is the most important thing to think about during the planning phase of converting a panel van into a camper van. This video, we're going to share some of the considerations we've had to think about and our final decisions for our layout. Hello, welcome to our van plan. So after the decision on the base van, your starting point, the next big thing to think about is the layout of your camper van. And that obviously depends on the van choice, so the size and the space available to you. But also you need to think about how you're going to use the van, how long you want to be away in it for at any particular point in time, and the kinds of things you like in terms of what it looks like, the sort of look and feel and coziness or modern, contemporary. All those considerations need to be thought about. And now, ironically, until you're actually out in the finished van, you're never going to know, oh, maybe we should have done this or maybe we should have done that. But I wanted to share with you our approach to planning our layout, partly because it's been 6 months that we've been waiting for the van to arrive, so we've had plenty of time to go through different iterations of layouts. And believe me, we thought we'd found the right layout, we really loved it, and then we will think about something else, or we'll see some other inspiration and then we'll tweak it and come up with something else. So it's been quite a long road. We think we're there now. So I'm going to share how we really reached that decision, and then when the van arrives, what we've done to kind of verify our layout and double check that it is actually realistic. Okay, so something you can't change is your base van, and that is ultimately the maximum amount of space you're going to have to be able to fit in the layout that you want. For us, we decided to go for a medium wheelbase Fiat Ducato. So that's an L2 H2. There are 4 lengths of Ducato ProMaster Boxer Relay chassis design. And we went for the L2 because it's a reasonable size, but also it fits on our driveway. It's more practical when you're out and about. You can park in supermarket car parks and things like that. And it just felt right for us for our first conversion. Now, most people seem to convert the L3 length of that particular vehicle. And with that, you get an extra 60 centimeters in length, which actually means that you can have a fixed bed, a nice dining area, even a bathroom and a kitchen area. But for us, with the L2 size, we've had to be a little bit clever to try and fit in as much as we can. But more on that in a minute. In terms of our van, we have 3.1, just over 3.1 meters in length inside to use for our layout, and nearly 1.9 meters across. And we're both 6 foot, so we wanted to have a widthways bed, and the Ducato chassis being nearly 1.9 meters wide really allows us to do that. So that was one of the key decision points in choosing this van. So we have a reasonable amount of space to work with, but you can imagine if we had a full double bed within that, that's literally taken up half the length, and it doesn't leave us with a lot of space to do anything else with. So you know how much space you've got available to you. The next thing is to think about how you want to use it, and also what you want the van to look and feel like in addition to that. So that's kind of 2 slightly different things. For us, we'd love to go away in the van for months and months at a time, but realistically that isn't going to happen. So really we're talking maybe 2 to 3 weeks maximum. We are able to work remotely, so one of the things for us is having a remote working space in the van, the ability to kind of have somewhere to work and then have that maybe separate to eating area, and also to have a little bit of space to kind of sit separately if one of us wants to read, one of us is doing some work or something like that. Just trying to have as many different zones as possible. One of the things I really wanted was a nice long run of worktop, so a proper kitchen area. And on the medium wheelbase Ducatos, a lot of the layouts tend to have small kitchen units opposite each other in the front half of the van in order to fit a full width bed in the back. But I really wanted to have a nice long run of kitchen as well. And in terms of sleeping, I think we ultimately wanted a fixed bed, because yeah, the kind of putting it down, taking up thing really wasn't that exciting to us. But at the same time, with the lack of space that we have, for want of a better word, it was a real option to actually give us more day space by having a dinette kind of style. So I wanted to share with you some of the sort of layout options that we've been through to reach the final one that we're at to today. So first of all, we looked at a dinette layout. So that's where you basically split the van into two. You can see the front part in yellow is the kitchen area. The back part is a U-shaped dining area. And during the day, you've got a nice kitchen area, nice space there on the worktop and everything. And in the back, you've got the nice dining area. You can sit opposite each other, next to each other. You could probably get 4 people there. And there'll be a table in the middle, and it'll feel quite spacious and quite open during the day. And then at night, when you want to sleep, you basically fill the gap in the middle of the U-shape, which forms your bed, and you've got a really nice sized double bed there. If you're sleeping across, obviously that's probably more like a king size width and a double bed length. But the downside of that is obviously you have to, at the end of the day, clear away all your stuff, move the table, set up the bed, put the sheets and bedding on, and yeah, it kind of, you can see why that's a problem, or would ultimately be a problem. Also, you do miss out on garage storage space. So whilst you've got storage below the seats, the U-shaped seats around the back, actually when you have a fixed bed with a decent sized garage, then there's loads more space to store a load of the stuff that you're just going to bring along. I know what we're like, we'll have loads of stuff, crates of all sorts of things that we just want to shove in the garage area out the way. So the dinette, great for daytime space, but we didn't feel like ultimately it is a practical solution. The next layout was one that we've seen on a few medium raw base conversions, where you ultimately have a smaller kitchen at the front with units opposite each other to kind of get the same worktop space, but you're putting a bit of that over on the other side into the opening door area. You then have a couple of small seats opposite each other in the middle of the van, with a small table that would be between them, and then you have a fixed bed at the back of the van. And there was a variation of that layout as well, whereby you had a bench seat opposite the door with a table in front of you, and then you have your kitchen units, as you can see in yellow, in the middle opposite each other, and then the fixed bed at the back. So the advantage here is fixed bed, you're getting decent garage space, like a huge amount of garage space. You're getting decent amount of kitchen space actually, but it's split up between 2 sides of the van. However, in the original layout with the seating opposite each other, we felt like it would be potentially quite restricting to just be sat on 2 small seats opposite each other. We couldn't sit next to each other, and maybe we wouldn't be able to stretch our legs out and things like that. So something about that was a little bit like, kind of like the layout, but at the same time it seemed like a lot of wasted space, because obviously the fixed bed is taking up half of the inside all day, every day, and there's no way around that. So then we moved on to thinking about an extendable bed. Now I've seen this on a few conversion channels and various Instagram accounts. Not many people have done this, but a few, and I think more are starting to. But for us, it means that if we could basically have a permanent bed that's maybe pushed away to half the width that it needs to be, it means that we can kind of get the best of both worlds. We have a bit of a garage area, we have a permanent bed where you just fold the bedding back rather than having to take it away and store it somewhere. And also during the day, we get probably 3/4 of the length of the van for dining and kitchen area. And then at night, with the overlap where the bed pulls out, you'll then get a decent sized bed and still access to the kitchen and everything else. So this particular layout that we looked at first of all was having a huge bed ultimately lengthways in the van. So if you think about in this diagram, the yellow's the kitchen, again a nice big width of kitchen units. Then you've got a bigger seats opposite each other, and then finally the fixed bed at the back. And then at night time you pull out the fixed bed and it would cover the seating area and a bit of the kitchen to give you a nice long bed area where you would be sleeping lengthways on that. So your head would be back near the back doors of the van, and it would be pretty much a super king mattress in that particular layout, which was quite appealing. However, when you think about the actual practicalities of this, in order to have a pull-out bed, it can only pull out twice as far really as when it's pushed away, to keep it as simple as possible. So you'd have to have the fixed part of the bed to get to sleep long ways, if that makes sense. Coming out from the doors would need to be, I think, about maybe 90 centimetres to a metre, so that you could then pull it out to a 2 metre length bed. So you're having a fixed area at the back of the van, which is a metre, say, which means that actually you have got less space for the rest of the internal layout. Okay, and then the fifth layout idea that was before the van actually arrived, again, saw some inspiration on Instagram for this layout, which is basically a similar kind of thing, but the bed at the back is a bit narrower because with this one you sleep widthways. So actually the width of the bed is about 75 centimeters, because when you pull it out, then it becomes the width of just over the width of a double bed. But it means that as it's stowed away in day mode, you're then getting much more area in the main part of the van. So one thing we realised with this is we could have a really nice long kitchen area, a long run of worktop at the back there in yellow. And then you would have a bench seat across the van, so you could sit next to each other, and then build in a fixed small stool seat opposite, so you could sit opposite each other for dinner and next to each other during the day and things like that, to give a bit more of a flexible arrangement. This would mean that the little stool seat would be sticking out into the doorway, which is fine, still leaves plenty of space to get through. And then, as you can see, at night when the bed's pulled out, you're sleeping widthways, so it's just over the width of a double bed and probably the length of a double bed. And this was the layout that, as I say, before the van arrived, we really liked it because of that long kitchen area, because of the garage and the simpler bed structure, because it's sort of narrower. It makes it a bit simpler to make. And then this kind of seating with a bit of flexibility really appealed to us, and we thought, yeah, this is the one to go for. So at this point it was all theory really. So I'd drawn out to scale on a program called Sketch that I use. I basically made 1 pixel a millimetre, so I could kind of broadly draw it to the correct scale. However, without the physical van, you always do think, like, have I missed anything? Is there something that's in the way that I don't really know from these plans that I got off the internet? So we kind of left it there for until the van arrived. And then when the van arrived, it was quite exciting because you kind of get in there for the first time. And I took that layout 5 broad measurements, and we got in the van and we started to measure that out, mark the layout with tape to really see what could fit. And this is a little bit of how that went. Okay, so I'm in the van. As you can see, it's a bit of a blank canvas at the moment. The first step is to translate the proposed design from the computer to real life situation. I've got my measurements from Sketch up here. I've got my tape. So what I'm going to do is basically mark out on the floor where the kitchen, the bed, the seating will be based on the measurements that I think are going to work. And then we can kind of spend some time in the van and try and establish whether that is actually, practical and is kind of what we want as we start to visualize it. So here goes. Okay, so that was quite straightforward. Just basically measured the depth from the back for the bed, from the side for the kitchen, and then the seating area. And first glance, it's cosy, but feels quite spacious up this end, which is going to be the main living area. And then the bed, obviously, this is half of the bed, so the bed will then extend out the same again to give us a king size bed across widthways. And then you kind of got seating area, kitchen along there. So yeah, first glance it looks good. I measured from the where I think the walls will come out to as well, so not right to the edge on both sides. And yeah, so I think we just need to kind of, both of us come in here, see the space, decide where we're sitting, and the kitchen and kind of everything is going to work, and then I can start getting on with the more detailed design side. But the cat seems to approve, don't you, Jess? So that's a good start. So we'd done the theory, we'd thought about the layout and how we want to use it, we'd been in the van, we'd marked it out, we'd kind of spent some time there to look at how much space that gave us, and we'd then ultimately come up with a hybrid version of our 5th design, with the main change being that we would have more of an L-shape seating unit with where the stall area, the small square area, would be movable, so that during the day it would be attached in an L shape, as you can see there in the light green. However, you could move that out away from the bench seat to become a dining seat opposite. You can have a table in between for dinner. It could also be pulled away right up to the cab, maybe for a footrest for the front, if you're sat on the front passenger seat, for example, and that's swiveled round. Or you could even take it outside the van and use it a bit flexibly. Then at night, in night mode, the bed would be pulled out widthwise, so you'd be sleeping across the van as before, and then you could use this stool piece, this square seat, to be the step up to the bed. So it becomes quite a flexible piece of furniture that then allows us to have the similar layouts as to layout 5, but with that extra flexibility for space. And ultimately, if we want to, shove that out the way in the garage, or we need more space, it doesn't even need to be in the front. But the idea being that when you're driving along, it would somehow hook into the main bench seat, so it kind of was secure and stayed in place. The other thing I'm kind of thinking is that you could then pop a little toilet in there as well, and it could be a kind of movable toilet unit as well, if that's what we're going to end up going for. So the final stage of our layout thinking was to bring the chosen design based on being in the van and the measurements there into SketchUp. Now I've used SketchUp on and off, but I'm no expert. I'm kind of making up as I go along. But I just want to show you what I did there. So I found a template for a L2 H2 Ducato in the store that they have. You can find all sorts of different objects and models for various different things, and there's plenty of Ducato ProMaster kind of base or bare van layouts. So I started with that, and then what I did was build up each unit fairly basically, but in terms of the actual sizes and dimensions that I wanted based on what we measured in the van, I was able to recreate that in SketchUp, move everything into place just to validate that obviously the tape on the floor in the van and then this kind of 3D model version of it really did align and gave us, felt like the space that we thought it would be giving us. And I'm pleased to say that it certainly does. Quite exciting to see it in this sort of 3D, again very basic, but it does give us a bit of a vision for what it's going to be like with the upper cabinets along the top, the bed in day mode and the seating area. And then I've created like the other half of the bed that you can then slide into place to see what that would look like, how far it would come out over the units and so on. And so that really did then validate the whole thing, and that is the design we're going for. So it's never really over, and we're going to be, as we build it, I think we'll be tweaking things as we go. One of the things I really need to think about is the actual bed frame and how that's going to work for pull out and put away in a nice, clean, reliable way. Did go back into the van after we did the SketchUp to look at the bed, because originally we were looking at going from sort of 75 centimeters to 150, but what that does is that pulls out the bed wider than the pillars. So that just means in design-wise you'd have to have some kind of indentation in it, which means that you'd have to have a weird shaped mattress and so on. So we went back out one evening and we thought, could we fit the bed just in the panel at the back to get the width, so that it literally just came out to the edge of that point up to the pillar, but we didn't have to worry about the fact the pillar then sticks out maybe 10 centimeters more than where the actual bed was. And I think we can do that. We're more than happy to sacrifice a bit of the width of the bed in order to kind of keep that simple and allow us ultimately, in terms of a mattress, to have a single double mattress cut in half in a much more simple way, rather than having to worry about chiseling out corners and things. But really that's going to come as we get to actually building that part of the van. The other thing is, that way in theory it shouldn't need to go over any of the worktops, because in the back of my mind I'm thinking the height of a worktop and the height of the bed is probably going to be the same. So in all the designs I've seen with an extending bed, the bed comes out over like a seat, which is lower, but butts up against the worktop. The way we were looking and potentially looking, it might need to go over the top of the worktop. So we just need to think about how that works. But there's plenty of ways to do that and to think about that. So I hope this has been useful. Obviously, like I say, the number one priority is the van you choose. Think about that really. If you're not yet decided which van you want, just start with your layout options and consider that the L3 Ducato Boxer Relay ProMaster vans do give you a bit more space inside to be able to have a fixed double bed. If you go for the medium wheelbase like we've done, then you're going to have to get a little bit creative. But it's nothing that can't be done. If I'm feeling reasonably confident I can do it, then you can. It's just about being creative and also thinking carefully about how you want to use the van. And at the end of the day, you know, you want, in my mind, you want the best space for sort of day mode, and then night mode you need to decide potentially what you want to compromise on. And is it to have, you know, is it really important to have garage space and a big fixed bed, or could you do something like the extendable bed to give you more daytime space? If you've got any questions about our layout or how we came to that decision or any other thoughts, please add them to the comments below. And also it'd be great if you could consider liking and subscribing to our channel. We're just doing this to document our journey, but we hope at the same time it's going to be useful for anybody else who stumbles across it. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.